Ooh-wee. All right. I'm going to get a little closer. No, that's right. My other camera view. Don't do that. Blocking the TikTok camera. Okay, that's better. I think that's better. Hey, we're live everywhere. Good morning, everybody. How you doing? My name is Sean Shapiro. This is Ask a Traffic Cop, that show on the internet where you get to ask questions and we talk about the answers. That's the whole thing. That's really what we do. Today is the 17th of April, and we're talking about electric motor vehicles. Yes, we're talking about e-bikes, eKick scooters, electric skateboards. We're talking about e-unicycles. We're talking about, I don't know. There's so many to talk about, but we're going to talk about all of them. And there's a lot of misunderstanding in relation to them. We have people who think that they're totally legal. There's others who understand that there are conditions that must be met in order for them to be legal. And we want to just make sure that everybody's on the same page, because I posted a video, was it Friday? I think it was Friday. And it featured someone on an eKick scooter traveling on Lakeshore Boulevard, heading eastbound. They were doing about 55 kilometers an hour. And that's not legal. We'll talk about why it's not legal. We'll talk about what you can do to ensure that you're legal. And we'll be doing that over the next hour. Now, of course, we're still going to take your questions. We're still going to take your comments. We're still going to discuss everything there is to discuss when it comes to, everything traffic and police related. But I do want to focus today on the stuff related to electric vehicles. Now, if you've got a question about something else, feel free to ask. You want to learn how to become a police officer or find out more about what we're hiring? You know what? Ask the question, because this is really a show for you. And if it turns out that we don't talk nearly enough about electric vehicles, at least I tried. But okay, first things first, how to contact us. How do you ask a question? How do you become involved in the show? You can do that by whether you're tuned into any of not any of them. Okay, TikTok, if you're in the chat, we have JD back in the office, and he's in the chat room, taking those questions and cutting and pasting them into our other platform, because Restream doesn't work with Twitter, and it doesn't work with TikTok directly, but we have a workaround. Now, when it comes to YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, Facebook, we get your questions directly to us, and we can do things like say hello to Jacob, who says, "Morning, Shawnee boy." So there you go. When you ask a question there, we can throw it up on screen. When we get a question that's posted by way of, let's see here. This is one that's an example from JD. He put it up on screen. It's coming from TikTok. We'll come back to that one in a second, just showing the example. Now, if you're on Instagram, I have a separate phone here. I'm talking directly to you. And when I do that, I'll be able to look at your screen or your questions on screen. Okay. Let's first get something out of the way. And that is, not that I shouldn't say out of the way. It sounds like it's not important when I say out of the way. It's very important. We're going to talk about Vision Zero Enforcement Team very, very quickly. And what is Vision Zero Enforcement Team? Well, they are a group of dedicated officers who are focused on enforcement duties. They go out and change driver behavior one ticket at a time. They do it because they know that, and we all know that enforcement actually changes behavior. I know not everyone agrees, but we see a difference. When we give warnings, like PC Pappy this morning gave a ticket for someone who was using their cell phone while driving. Turns out they had 2 warnings on file already. And on their third stop for the same offense, he gave him a ticket. Now, he didn't give him the warnings, but he and I agree, you don't give warnings for offenses like that. You forgot your license at home? Okay, maybe we'll do a warning. You're driving while you're using your cell phone? No, thanks. There's no warnings here. We see more death and destruction because of impaired driving and distracted driving than anything else. So let's talk about where they are today, because they go to different sections of the city every single day, and they focus on the big 4. What are the big 4, you ask? Let me see if I can get the mouse over fast enough. Yes, I did. So they are. I pressed the wrong button. Speeding, aggressive driving, distracted driving, and impaired driving. Those are the offenses that lead to serious injury and death on our roads. See how distracted driving and impaired driving, and I just talked about that with PC Pappy's post, because that's real stuff. Really matters. Today, they're in 11 division and 55 division. What does that mean? Well, those are the neighborhoods of Junction, Weston, High Park, Ronsonsvale, the Beaches, Riverdale, Danforth, East York, neighborhoods where real people live, work, and play, and deserve to be safe. If it was your neighborhood, I'm sure you'd be calling to complain about all the people who are causing issues in your area, causing it to be less safe for your friends, family, children. You know, it's important stuff. We all deserve to be safe. And there's lots of people who say, well, deal with the TTC first. Well, you know what? you can point fingers but we're the traffic safety programs unit. We talk about traffic safety, and there's other people who are working to make everything else safe too. I focus the stuff in my wheelhouse. All right. We've talked about that. I can close this window. Fantastic. Absolutely. By the way, good morning to Tracy and Neha and Liam and Master Technician. How's it going? We've got Lamar who wants to know about municipalities. You'd have to go and look at each individual municipality to figure out who's adopted it. We'll talk more about that later. But Lamar, I saw your messaging on TikTok earlier, so we'll talk more about it. Okay, let me get. And M. Good morning. I don't know if Emma's here. I don't see Emma. Maybe Emma will pop in later. I saw M. I thought it was Emma, but it's a different M. And I say hello to everybody. Well, to you both. I'm acknowledging you both. Okay, let's get into here. We have greetings and salutations from the TMC Traffic Management Center. We have Tim Shallow with a good morning. Harley raffle reminder from Michael H. And you know what? You're absolutely right. Before we get too deep into things, and I do want to get into all sorts of things, we got an hour, but we got lots to talk about in that hour. Very quickly, want to point out can I do this? Yeah, I can do this. Cool. There we go. We have the Harley raffle in support of Special Olympics Ontario. If you're interested in buying a ticket so that you can not only be a wonderful human being, but you can also increase your chances of winning, because you can't win if you don't buy. There's only, I think, 7,000 tickets. One ticket is 20, 3 for 50, 8 for 100. Obviously, the best deal is the 8 for 100. And I know someone who's won in the past. It is a real deal. It's a real motorcycle. 2022 Harley Davidson Touring Street Glide. I want it. I got to buy tickets. And I haven't actually bought tickets. I keep saying that I'm going to buy tickets, and I haven't bought them yet. I usually buy a few $100s a year, and I've yet to win, but I keep buying. Eventually, it'll just equal the same price as having purchased the bike. But it hasn't happened yet. I haven't bought a bike, I haven't bought a new bike. Okay. So here's a question before we get into the whole electric bike thing. I should probably turn off the screen here. The mini electric car from China, legal or not, they're not fast at all. So I don't know what the mini electric car is. It would have to be something that could either qualify for the slow speed, low powered. Let me see here. There's a pilot here, low speed pilot, and depending on where you are in the province. Low speed program. Let's see if I can find that for you. So there is let me put it back on screen for you. So there is a pilot program. It's actually been in play since 2017. It's a 10-year pilot. You have to be a Jeep licensed driver. There's qualifications to what the vehicle must have. Golf carts do not qualify, and every jurisdiction has to allow them in the jurisdictions. So you'd want to look into the low speed vehicle pilot program to see if that would apply to you or for the vehicle that you're asking about. But I don't know about the mini electric car from China, unfortunately. Okay, so let me see if I've got anything else here, because it might be something that will plug into the conversation as we get going. Okay, let's get into things. So first of all, e-bikes. We know that e-bikes are legal. It started off as a pilot, and then, the pilot expired. They made it permanent. So e-bikes are part of Ontario roadways, and as long as they conform to the rules, they're legal. And what does that really mean? Because there's a lot of confusion. What does it need to be legal? What does it require? I talk about this a great deal, and I want to bring it up here on screen. But essentially, in order for an e-bike to be considered an e-bike and not a motor vehicle, because when you have a vehicle that is powered by gas or electric power source other than muscular power, and it's on the road, it's a motor vehicle. Now, there are legislative changes like the e-bike legislation and the pilot that deals with eKick scooters, that if you meet the requirements and you follow the rules, you get consideration. You're treated as a cyclist, but it's still a motor vehicle. It just has this magical shroud of legislation that makes it legal for use. Otherwise, you can't use it. So what does that mean? Let's talk about this, and I'll put it on screen. We'll start off with e-bikes. So there's a definition of what it is: handlebar for steering, working pedals, 2 or 3 wheels, an electric motor, braking systems. Okay. You must be 16 years old, wear an approved bicycle or motorcycle helmet, keep your e-bike in good working order, because there are charges if you don't, and follow the same rules as other cyclists because you're considered a cyclist. But there are further conditions. The requirements of the actual e-bike are here. Maximum speed, assisted speed of 32 kilometers an hour. So if you were pedaling on your own and you went faster, that's different. On a flat surface, 32 kilometers an hour under power. Maximum weight of 120 kilos includes the weight of battery and bike, an electric motor not exceeding 500 watts, and no modifications to the motor to allow it to exceed the power output greater than 500 watts and an assisted speed of 32 kilometers an hour. I can tell you that it doesn't take much time to figure out, using YouTube and the magic of the internet, to figure out how to circumvent these things. But if you're going faster than 32 kilometers an hour, you're back to being a motor vehicle. And guess what? You are required to have license, ownership, and insurance, but you can't actually get insurance for this vehicle. You can't actually register it as a motorcycle. And that's what it is. It's a motorcycle. So what happens? Well, it's illegal for the road. It's a private property only thing. As soon as you modify it, it can't go on the road. And people don't understand this, or they don't want to accept that this is a real deal and you can be held accountable. We're seeing these things doing 60, 80 kilometers an hour on the road. And there's ones that look just like motorcycles. Yeah, they have bicycle pedals that are removable, but you're not allowed to remove them. You actually have to have functioning pedals. But anyway, the deal is that people are modifying them. They're putting them into a situation where they're no longer considered bicycles. And they're out there riding them to save money or get to work. And I'm all for that, but not when they're illegal. 32 kilometers an hour is the max. That's what the law says you can do. That's what you can do. So what else does it say? There's deals with, it talks about braking systems. Well, when it's going beyond the 32 kilometers an hour, it's also an unsafe vehicle. So there's all sorts of charges that you're opening yourself up to. Let's talk about eKick scooters. I know this is exciting. I'm doing PowerPoint presentation to you. eKick scooters. Now, this is where it describes what an eKick scooter is. It's a motor vehicle that, when you are conforming, you get to consider yourself an eKick scooter. Well, it is an eKick scooter, but you get to consider yourself effectively a bicycle. But the pilot program says that you must have a maximum speed no more than 24 kilometers an hour, 45K max, 500 watts. You got to have a horn and bell. There's a whole bunch of things here, and you can't add pedals, and you can't add a seat, and you can't add a basket. Like, these are things that are very simple, but as soon as you break those rules, you're not covered. Now, I will say this: you are not permitted to use these at all in Toronto. And people go, well, why? There's a pilot program. Why is there a restriction? Well, simply, there's a restriction because the pilot program was a opt-in situation. If the municipality said it was okay, then it was okay. And if the pilot or if the municipality said no, then it was no. And you can be charged for operating these, even legal ones, in the city of Toronto, because you're not allowed to use them. Now, there is a connection with these, and studies have shown that there's a direct correlation to the use of scooters and increased head injuries hitting our hospital system. So there is an impact, and the city doesn't want to have unsafe vehicles on the road, and that's one of the reasons that they've chosen not to have them. That's it. If you're using one, legal or not, they're prohibited. The legal ones can be used outside of Toronto in municipalities like Mississauga that allows them, but not here. And if you're doing what the chap, or I'm making an assumption here, the person who was on the eKick scooter that I caught on camera, well, that person was using one doing over 50 kilometers an hour, totally prohibited, would require license, ownership, and insurance, but you can't actually license them for the road. You can't actually take a vehicle that's modified to go faster and use it. It's off-road only. So that person would be eligible for all sorts of tickets. The most important one, the biggest one, is drive motor vehicle or operate motor vehicle, no insurance. That comes with a $5,000 to $25,000 fine and up to 6 months in jail. And of course, I posted this on TikTok, and people went bananas. They said, that's crazy. That's unrealistic. That's just gouging someone who's just trying to get to work. You're welcome to get to work legally. So an eKick scooter, not a legal option in Toronto. E-bikes are. Making an argument that you really prefer eKick scooters to e-bikes, you're really not making an argument that's worth hearing, because they're not legal in the city, and they're not legal on the road when they've been modified, like the one that the person was riding in the video. Okay, so when you're talking about those electric vehicles, they're clearly defined. What about those electric unicycles? I don't have a great picture for this, but that's these. Maybe I can throw on a video. 60 miles per hour. Yeah, these are not legal at all. I got to turn that off. That's really annoying. I don't know if you hear what I hear, but it's loud. The deal is that those are prohibited everywhere in the province. They're motor vehicles. They're unsafe motor vehicles. I've seen some amazing is not the right word. Horrific collisions involving these body parts bending in ways they're not supposed to, and obviously that means that the people who were riding them were tremendously injured and were involved in collisions, whether they were their fault or not. They're not on a legal vehicle, and they're not going to get paid the way people think they're going to get paid. They think they're going to sue because a driver hit them. Well, they're not allowed to be on the road, so that's going to be causing a major problem. And I got to tell you that one of the reasons I'm sharing this information is not because I just want to wag my finger and tell people don't do things. It's because you could end up in a really bad situation where you are injured out of work and you're going to sue someone. But how are you going to sue someone for damages when you yourself were on a vehicle that was prohibited on the road? You were breaking the law. You're taking on some responsibility. I'm not a lawyer. Maybe a lawyer is going to tell you, no, you have a great opportunity to sue them for everything they're worth. I disagree, but I'm not a lawyer. So maybe they've got some experience suing people while people are on illegal, unsafe vehicles that have no steering or braking. I don't know. Just saying. I wouldn't want to be on one of these. Not to mention the fact that would make you eligible also for all the charges of riding or operating a motor vehicle without insurance and unsafely on the road. And there's a lot of charges. And we do charge the operators of these when they are involved in collisions. Because when you're involved in a collision and you're responsible for it, you should be held accountable. Because just because you get really hurt doesn't mean you're a victim. It means you're involved in the collision. Okay. Let me check out here. I want to see. So we talked about this one. I want to see if there's any questions that we've covered so far. So I didn't get into electric skateboards, and Lamar wants to know. So electric skateboards, are they eKick scooters? No. Are they e-bikes? Obviously not. But they are motor vehicles, and they're capable. There are devices or electric skateboards that are capable of going over 40 miles per hour. Now, are they legal for the road? No, but technically skateboards aren't even allowed on the road either. Is it a very strange realm? Sure, but it's a motor vehicle. It's dangerous. You can get hurt. Are you going to be able to be charged? Yeah, you can be charged for operating an unsafe motor vehicle on the road. There's all sorts of liability that you're opening yourselves up to. But are people doing it? Every single day we see them. And do we stop everybody? Well, unfortunately, officers are focused on a lot of different or tasked with a lot of different things. If an officer's going to a call, he can't or they can't just pull over and deal with everybody that they see breaking every rule on the way to wherever they're going, because we have to prioritize calls, and they're actually assigned by dispatch to go to a call. So there's a lot of people getting away with a lot of things that they shouldn't be. And I'm trying to get the word out to everyone out there using these devices, because they could be seriously injured and be held seriously responsible for they would be held seriously responsible, liable for whatever damage they cause. Even if they were to hit a car and damage a car, that insurance company may come after you. I did post an article that I found because someone asked about liability earlier this morning on Twitter as to what are the liabilities, or what are the potential consequences. Can someone on a bicycle or on an e-bike who crashes into a car be sued? Well, yeah, they can. Can they be insured if they get hurt? Yeah, they can. And the biking lawyer David Shelnut was actually interviewed. He made a statement in that article, so it was very interesting. And if you check out Voiceover Cop on Twitter, you can see in my tweets and responses that article. Maybe I'll repost it after the show. Let's see here. I want to go through and see what else we got here going. What are we going? So I guess that blanket statement is, if there's a specific definition under the HTA for permitting the use of an electric vehicle, well, then if it's specifically outlined, then it's okay. The lack of having it listed doesn't, by virtue of it not being listed, doesn't make it legal. puts you in a very strange position because you may find yourself with an unhappy ending. That's terrible version of or description of the results, but unhappy ending I think is appropriate. A quick acknowledgement of this question: how do you report a fallen road sign that needs to be replaced? 311. In the city of Toronto, in most cities, 311 would be the appropriate place to call and notify. They would put a report and call the appropriate section of the city. And good morning to my wife, Leo wife, who's watching. Okay, we've got this. Alex may have been asking about e-scooters. Now, do you mean e-scooter like an e? Let me see if I can put up a picture here of what I'm thinking of here. Electric e-bikes. Okay, here's definitions of stuff and things. All right. Graphics, I can lower this. There I am. Can I go in the top right-hand corner? No, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, I don't have many options. Okay, we'll deal with what we can do. So you have your pedelec and pedal assisted cargo e-bikes. These are illegal. Those are, or a pedelec would suggest that you cannot run by throttle alone. So you have to be able to use you have to pedal and it augments the work. Are you talking about this? A electric scooter that's throttle. You really can't function with like the pedals are there because it's required under the law, but they don't really do anything. Those are legal if they're maxed out at 32 kilometers an hour on a flat surface. If they meet all the requirements of the legislation, but you can't use them in cycle tracks. They're not permitted in cycle tracks. There's a graphic. So those are allowed in bicycle lanes, in Shapiro regular lanes, but not allowed on any paths, not allowed in any parks, not allowed in the cycle tracks. But pedelecs can go everywhere. So mind you can't go into the multi-use paths with a cargo e-bike, but with a pedelec can go everywhere. Mind you, you must remember that on city parks, specific to Toronto, maybe different in other jurisdictions, there's a maximum speed of 20 kilometers an hour in parks. And then motorcycle, mopeds, motor scooters, this category, apparently you can't use them anywhere but on the road. You can't put them on bike paths. You can't put them on bike lanes. You can't put them in cycle tracks. And I talked about this last week. I was confused by the fact that there's the same photo or a very similar device on being considered power-assisted e-bike and motor scooters. So I need to get some clarification as to why this picture is not that picture. But anyway, the motorcycles are in particular, I have an issue with. The ones that look like motorcycles, because I just did, again, a couple of quick keyword searches, and I found that it is really easy to modify these to go 80 kilometers an hour. So not okay. But e-scooters that conform can be on the road as long as they meet the definition. Otherwise, they become illegal, or motorcycles and require license. People say, well, what do you mean you need license, ownership, of insurance? It's an e-bike. Well, it's got an electric engine or electric motor. Why is it being held to a standard like this? And I got to tell you, Harley Davidson makes an electric motorcycle, and it needs a license plate, and it needs a motorcycle license, and it needs insurance. And yeah, it goes more than 80 kilometers an hour. But I guess if it was limited to 32 kilometers an hour, it was light enough, it would be an e-bike. Put pedals in it. Whatever. Love to hear from everyone who's watching. If you have questions about stuff that I'm talking about here in the e-bikes, we'll talk more about it. There's some great videos that I want to share. Oh, and just for an example, this was the e-bike that I was talking about. That's an e-bike. Does that look like an e-bike to you? It's being treated as an e-bike. And for for 3,300, and I think that's Canadian. It's supposed to only go 32 kilometers an hour, but apparently not hard to modify these things. In fact, I called a dealership, not telling them who I was, but I called the dealership, and they told me, over the phone, yeah, no, it's no problem. We'll show you how to take off the modification. So there's no question that people are aware of the fact that the law can be broken, and broken easily. Okay. Here's a question that is not related to e-vehicles. Not that well, actually, I guess it does. Is it illegal to avoid a red light by pulling a legal right turn when legal and doing a U-turn when safe? Yeah, it's if you make a legal right turn to when it's if it's a red light, you have to come to a stop before making the turn, which is, by the way, a real pet peeve to me. I see vehicles constantly turning right on red without coming to a stop, not even slowing down. It is a ridiculous thing. I don't understand what broke in drivers' minds or how people are passing their driver's license test, but people are making right turns on red without coming to a stop at an alarming rate, like everywhere I go. I constantly I watch 10 vehicles do it at one intersection. I counted because I was with my family, and we counted as a family because we want to practice math. But I got little kids. What can I say? We count everything, and it was amazing, just amazing. But yes, making a right turn when legal and making a U-turn where legal and safe is legal. Ryan Pinn, good morning to you. Ryan is a driving instructor in Nova Scotia, and he often jumps into the live stream and says hello. We've actually never had you on video. We should have you on video one day. Two warnings. I would go straight to ticket for distracted, Michael. So this is again talking about PC Pappy's post where he gave someone a ticket for distracted driving this morning and saw that they had previously received two printed warnings for the same offense. And he says, well, it's obvious that warnings don't work. Well, warnings can work for minor offenses, but when you talk about something like this, something like distracted driving, where we see it at the root of so many collisions, it is so dangerous. Yeah, this is not something. It's a $615 ticket and has escalating consequences, which involve suspension and involve demerit points. There should be no leniency there. Okay. Here's a question about helmets. Are you allowed to have a GoPro attached to a motorcycle helmet? Well, let's first back up for a second, since I want to keep everything related to e-bikes as much as possible. E-bikes, you got to wear a helmet. That's an epidemic. We see people on e-bikes, even legal ones, not wearing helmets all over the city. Food delivery, lots and lots of people out there, and very rarely do I see one wearing a helmet. Well, they may be confusing e-bikes with bicycles, because as a bicycle, if you're over the age of 18, you can actually choose not to wear a helmet. But on an e-bike, you can't. Everyone operating an e-bike must absolutely be riding with a helmet. You also have to be 16 years old. Now, people were asking the question, can I have someone on my e-bike as a passenger? They're not riding it. They're not operating. They're just a passenger. Can they be under 16? I've seen children being taken by their parents on e-bikes, and you have to be 16 years old to be on an e-bike. So if you're taking your child on an e-bike, you're breaking the rules, and you can be held accountable for that, regardless if they're doing everything else right. Now, to actually get to your question of can you have a GoPro attached to a motorcycle helmet? No, you may not. You cannot have a GoPro on the helmet, mount it to your body, mount it to your bike, but don't mount it to your helmet. It may cause serious injury, and modifications to a helmet is not legal. You can't do it because it makes the helmet, it renders the helmet improper. It's been tested from the manufacturer with certain things attached. And when you change that, so goes the standard. Listen, if you certify a vehicle and modify that vehicle significantly from the way it was safetied, is the safety still there? No. You tint a window, your windshield, well, it wouldn't have passed an inspection. So the inspection is no longer valid. You are driving an unsafe vehicle. So same thing here. You can't put a helmet on with a GoPro. And, people say, well, why? Because if you fall off your bike, motorcycle, bicycle, what have you, and you hit that GoPro instead of hitting the shell that's designed to compress and has all these wonderful features to keep you safe, well, it won't operate the way it's supposed to, and you might hurt yourself. And that's one of the reasons it's not permitted. People say, well, at 100 miles an hour, which is roughly 160 kilometers an hour, it's not going to matter. Well, maybe so, but that doesn't change the law. And I want to scroll down and see what I missed. There's so many questions here. Okay. Can I have lights on my tires? So you mean the valve stem lights? Not specifically illegal. I will tell you that most of them are made out of aluminum, and most of the metal used for the valve stem are not. And what happens is you end up having them, it creates a reaction, and they bond, they fuse. It's a bad thing. And then you end up having to cut off your valve stems and get new ones put in. So I would avoid putting any of that crap on your car. Okay. This relates to e-vehicles. If you're on your motorcycle and the light won't turn green, what are your options for the rider? You can get off in ensuring that your vehicle cannot be stolen, of course. Go up and press the button to trigger. This is a situation like the middle of the night when no one's around and there's no other vehicle to help trigger the sensor on the road to make it change. So what happens is you can go and trigger it yourself manually. And if you can't do that, well, the option would be to make a legal right turn and a legal U-turn, as the recent question suggested. Okay. In my experience, what is this? Okay, I don't know what this one is. Oh, everything just scrolled up. When lots of questions. What is Sean's beverage? This is a cherry-flavored bubbly. Yes. And I actually don't like it, but it's cold. I don't understand like bubbly water that has a hint of flavor. I actually either want flavor or just water. I would have opted for water if it had been cold. What do we have here? Okay. We're circling back, but it's max speed allowed for electric vehicles. If we're talking about e-bikes and e-kick scooters, they're limited to 32 kilometers an hour and 24 kilometers an hour. So e-bike 32 max on a flat surface under power, and for an e-kick scooter 24 kilometers max on a flat surface under power. When we're talking about the one wheels, hoverboards, those are all prohibited. Those are not permitted on the road. We see them everywhere. People are using them and either don't realize or don't care that they're not permitted on the road. Let's see here. We got, can you have decals on your windshield? You can have decals on your windshield if they're not placed anywhere in the path of your windshield wiper. So anywhere that your windshield wiper wipes would be an obstruction of your vision. That's the easiest one. Okay. Here's a question about traffic lanes, reversible lanes. So we have a couple of streets. Is it more than one street? At least we have one street where a street light dictates the direction of travel, whether it's northbound or southbound, and it changes based on flow of traffic, or time of day based on the needs to deal with flow of traffic. How do I feel about them? I always feel uneasy on them personally as a driver, because I never know if the person coming the other way is going to realize that are they going to go into oncoming traffic? So people get into habits like we change street signs, and then people say, well, it's not fair that you change the speed on the street because it's been 40 or 50 or 60 for the last 100 years, and now it's slower, and it's not fair that you're giving me a ticket for the new speed limit because I didn't know. Well, there were signs. Read the signs. So it's the same thing about reversible lanes. You should pay attention. But you have people who drive aimlessly all day long and have no idea they're just an autopilot because people are distracted by thought or the stereo or their cell phones, and they just do what they did yesterday, even though that may not be the same today. Okay. We've got, is turning left on a red considered stunting? So I think we have to specify a few things, and I know we're getting away from the e-bike theme that that I started with, but we'll come back to it. Turning left on a red is either proceeding before green or running a red, depending on whether you stopped or didn't beforehand. If you can't do a U-turn or a left turn on a red light, obviously that's illegal. The stunting is when you are about to turn green. It's about to turn green, and traffic coming the other way would be expected and entitled to go first. And when you jackrabbit start or hit the gas just before it turns green or just after it turns green and beat them to the punch, that is stunt driving. And that comes with a 14-day vehicle impound, a 30-day driving license suspension. It comes with all sorts of consequences on conviction, like a 1 to 3 year driving prohibition, like a $2,000 to $10,000 fine, and up to 6 months in jail for your first conviction. Second goes up from 3 to 10 years for driving prohibition, same $2,000 to $10,000 fine, and another potential jail term. Now, Jail terms, whenever I talk about these, like when the post that what drove people the most crazy about the post I did for driving no insurance, which is what, uh, if you drove a modified e-bike, if you took an e-bike that was once covered as an e-bike and then you modified it, hey, I got to turn it around and talk about e-bikes again. So you have an e-bike. It does 32 kilometers an hour. It's perfectly legal. No insurance required. Well, now you modify it and you make it capable of doing 60. That's now a motor vehicle requiring insurance. And one of the consequences for drive no insurance, aside from the $5,000 to $25,000 fine for the first conviction, is up to 6 months in jail. People say, "How could you put people in jail for this?" And carrying a weapon comes with less or the same, and they just it's an option for the courts. It's not a guarantee. It's an option, but you need to know what your options are. You need to know what the potential consequences are. That's why I talk about all of them. I don't say, well, it's less likely that you're going to go to jail, but it's more likely you're going to pay a hefty fine. No, I tell you what all the rules are, but people really don't like hearing about the potential of jail. So I hope that answers your question in regards to red and stunting. Here's a fantastic question about cyclists, and it applies to e-bikes and e-kick scooters too. Although e-kick scooters don't, what is this? Streetcars. Well, so it won't. It applies to those illegally operating e-kick scooters in the city of Toronto. To avoid an additional charge. So Master Technician wants to know if cyclists in bike lanes need to stop for streetcars like cars do. Streetcars and their door open policy or their requirement to stop for and not pass a streetcar with the doors open absolutely applies to everyone who is on the road. So if you're on a skateboard, if you're on an e-bike, if you're on an electric scooter, regardless of whether that's legal for the road or not, you still got to adhere to that because it's an additional charge you could be held liable for. I would charge you for everything, including the pass open doors of streetcar, if I stopped you. Just saying. Okay. Here's a great question. Does your car insurance protect you in case you get into a collision while riding a bicycle? Arthur, great question. And again, I posted an article talking about this morning, and I didn't realize that you could use your car insurance or your home insurance to cover you for damages on a bicycle. Now, if you're not at fault, well, then the driver of the other vehicle will ultimately be paying for you. But let's say you are at fault, or let's say you just fell in a pothole, or there are avenues to get coverage that you should look into. And as someone using alternate modes of transportation, bicycle, skateboard, whatever, know that you may or may not have those, but you should look into them. Definitely. And you've got people like the biking lawyer who specifically is out there to try and help cyclists. And, I'm not plugging him that you need to go to him in particular, but he's very active in the community and knows his stuff when it comes to cyclists. So obviously using someone who understands the space is important. And people are probably scratching their head saying, one second, don't you usually disagree with him? We don't always see eye to eye, but he is the right person if you're a cyclist to talk to, I think. That's not to endorse him in particular, but he's the guy that shows up in all the articles, so he must know something. Okay, I got to scroll back because there's a whole bunch of questions. A very good question. Is it legal for motorcycles to filter or lane split? No, it is not legal for motorcycles or anyone to filter or lane split. Technically, even bicycles aren't permitted. There's no justification or specific permission given to pass vehicles on the right-hand side. Granted, if they're in a bike lane, that's different. They have their own lane. But if there's no bike lane, are they allowed to? There's no specific permission. If the vehicle's there first, they should pass on the left and not in the midst of traffic because that's not safe. Could a motorcycle be charged for lane splitting? Yeah, careless driving, stunt driving, dangerous driving, depending on the observations the officer makes, because we're not talking about traveling through speed. Like stop traffic is lane filtering. That's the difference. Stop traffic is turns red and the motorcycle rides between stopped cars to get to the front of the pack. Is it safe or reasonable or acceptable? Before I was a police officer, I didn't know it was illegal. I didn't know or didn't consider the consequences, and I did that, and I didn't have any problems with it. Could it have been a situation that caused a collision? Sure. Were people upset? Like, hey, what are you doing? Could it have created road rage? Yeah. I was riding since I was 16, and I did that on a regular basis. Didn't make it right. Now what we see is people who say, well, what about just moving in one car length? Can I move away so I'm not the rear vehicle and basically tuck in between two cars? And I think that's reasonable. Legal or not, I think that's reasonable. You can articulate to an officer that you weren't trying to drive through 30 cars of traffic. You were just trying to make yourself less of a target. I support that. When it comes to lane splitting, where you are actually driving at speed at an increased or with a high speed differential. So, okay, what's the difference between careless, stunt, and dangerous? So, if all traffic is rolling at 5 kilometers an hour and you're doing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kilometers an hour, you're splitting, it's dangerous. Maybe that's a careless driving. Now you get into a situation where you are doing 50 kilometers an hour and they're doing 5 kilometers. Now you're doing 45, 50 kilometer an hour speed differential. You're really raising the risk. And that is something that could qualify as stunt driving. You're a marked departure from the travel of the other lanes. Now you get into, you're doing 100 kilometers an hour between 5, 10 kilometer an hour traffic, or you're doing 100 and they're doing 50, or the speed differential, or if you're doing I don't know, you're going faster to a degree that is such a risk to public safety that criminal charges of dangerous driving would be warranted. And it all depends on, like I said, I'm trying to create examples, but chances are you'd more than likely be looking at stunt or careless rather than dangerous, but you never know. It could seriously go wrong. And that is a problem. Logan Grant. Logan Grant says, have you talked about the Harley yet? I have talked about the Harley. I've already taken it off screen. But harleyraffle.ca for anyone who's interested in being a good human, supporting the Special Olympics Ontario and increasing your odds tremendously of winning a Harley Davidson. Go to harleyraffle.ca because you can buy tickets 1 for 20, 3 for, did I mess it up? 3 for 50, 8 for, no, I messed it up. Harley Raffle. I'll pull it up again because I've already forgotten what it is. Harley Raffle. 3 for 50. Okay, I had it right. 1 for 20, 3 for 50, 8 for 100. There you go. And there's some early bird raffles. I have to get my tickets before May 3rd so I get my chances to win the extra stuff, because everyone can take advantage of or use more coffee money. Yeah, there was an early bird for a Tim Hortons gift card for that's given away on the 2nd of May. And then there's a $500 gift certificate at Harley for the 3rd early bird prize on July 5th. But you got to be in for all of them to win any of them. Okay. If a 10-year-old ride a bike on the roads without a helmet, will you give a ticket or something else? So, Billy Wang, you got a great question there. Thank you for asking it. Cyclists, it can't be e-bikes, but a 10-year-old riding a bicycle requires a helmet, and they can be charged under the Highway Traffic Act for not wearing a helmet. And while they can be actually at 10 years old, they're under 12. It would be the parent that would likely receive the ticket. If they're, if they're 16 to 18, 16 or 17, they would get it with a summons and notice to parent. But if it's anyway, anyone under the age of 18 who's not wearing a helmet can be charged. If they're truly a child, the parent would be more than likely held responsible, and as opposed to the 10-year-old getting a ticket themselves. Now, a 10-year-old can ride on the sidewalk in Toronto. Every jurisdiction is different, but they can ride on so it's age-based in the city of Toronto. If you're under the age of 14, so 13 and below, you can ride on the sidewalk, and I'm good with that as long as they're being safe, because there's charges for operating whether it be rollerblading, skateboarding, or bicycling on a sidewalk that puts others at risk. And sidewalks are really pedestrian-oriented. I think they're really meant for pedestrians, because where do you want the pedestrians to go when everyone else is busy utilizing that stuff? The sidewalks for their benefit. Obviously, if you're in a rural area or if you're in a neighborhood where there's nobody there, are you going to be pulled over and given a hard time? You may not be. Is it illegal? Depends on the jurisdiction you're in. In the city of Toronto, I've already gone over it, but maybe in York Region, maybe it's not. I don't actually know. I've never looked. I'd be interested to know. Can you ride bicycle? I'm typing here. Okay, checking sign. Using the googly goo. City of Markham, do not ride your bicycle on the sidewalk. That's their Facebook page. What is this? Markham has a, this is since 2016. Markham has a bylaw prohibiting bikes with big, oh, so they're doing what we used to do, unless it's changed again. But they have it based on wheel diameter. So it used to be, I think, more than a 14-inch wheel was required to be on the road, but small tires could be on the sidewalk. By the way, if you are watching and have no idea who I am, my name is Sean Shapiro. I'm a police officer with the Toronto Police Service. I go live on social media to answer your traffic and police questions Monday to Friday from 10 to 11. Today, we are talking about electric vehicles. We're talking about e-bikes, eKick scooters. We're talking about electric skateboards. We're talking about electric unicycles, which are totally prohibited, by the way. Those things are wild and crazy and dangerous. And I'm not trying to, no, I am trying to vilify them. They're terrible. I see them. They're cool. I've seen some people do some amazing tricks on them. They have no place on our roads at all. What else can I tell you? I said, yeah, follow us wherever you are. And if you're watching on TikTok, please hit that like button or that screen tappity tap tap as often as possible. Helps that bring people to the party. And we're all about sharing good information with many people. Okay. Is there such a thing as a no chase law? If it's too much threats to the so it's not called a no chase law. It's we are capable and fully within our. Let me back up. If someone is being told to pull over, lights and sirens are active, and they don't pull over, well, that's a pursuit. Now, if we pursue for the purposes of identifying them with a certain criteria met where we would pursue and where we wouldn't, it's all about public safety. And obviously, if it's putting people in harm's way, it has to be all things have to be considered. So there's no specific blanket don't chase law. It has to be reasonable. It has to make sense. It has to be for public interest. Like someone just killed someone, and we're going to go. Someone rolls a stop sign, and we're going to get into a chase and possibly get someone severely injured. No, we'll call it off at a certain point. Usually right after we identify who's in the vehicle and the vehicle itself. What is the minimum age for for passengers on a motorcycle in Ontario? So Sarah asks a great question. I was just talking about this very thing this morning. There's no specific age. They have to be able to be seated on the motorcycle with their feet touching the passenger pegs or floorboards. They must be wearing an approved helmet, and they must be capable of holding themselves on the vehicle. So you can't tie them to you. So it can't be a very large child who doesn't have the wherewithal to hold on. And for me personally, I wouldn't take someone on my bike that I didn't feel truly comfortable as a passenger. Because when you move your body weight around on a bicycle, I don't know, big kid, small kid, it can change the way that the vehicle responds. That can put you into a situation. For instance, if I'm leaning in and they're leaning out because they're scared, the vehicle may want to come back up and go on a straight line. You may end up hitting something. Okay. We talked about that. Here's a good question. Dayton Saf? No, pronounce your username. There are so many new and different types of road users. How can the rules of the road laws be updated to reflect current users? Well, the truth is that things are changing faster than the HTA. So things are not necessarily 100% defined, which is when you start bridging gaps. Until they're completely defined, the best and closest thing is used as the defining or the rule that applies. So clearly, a eKick scooter is not a motorcycle by the true definition, but it's a two-wheel with handlebar vehicle that runs on power. Does it apply? Can it be perceived as a motorcycle? Is that the best? It's not a car, but it's a motor vehicle. So we work within it. It might be disputed in court. It might be supported. It may be overturned. But the HTA has some flexibility when it comes to these things. We write tickets and lay charges based on the common sense approach. There's a lot of common sense here. Most things are common sense, although there's a lot lacking. Just because it isn't specifically listed doesn't mean it's a free for all. Do whatever you want. No. So how can things be updated? It will catch up, and then it'll be behind again. So unless there's specific rules of the road that you're looking for, I don't know. I'm generalizing my general question to your general question. Does an e-bike require a license. Motorcycles do, so I'm curious. An e-bike, if it conforms to the regulations surrounding e-bikes, does not require a driver's license, ownership, and insurance. In fact, you cannot register an e-bike as a motorcycle. It's just not possible, even though it's a motorcycle. It is a motorcycle. It's only through the magic of of legislation that it's a motorcycle that you don't have to register and you can operate on the road. It's a low power bike, as long as it's low power. But then you take them and you pump up the juice, and suddenly it's capable of doing 80 kilometers an hour. Well, that is a motorcycle, isn't it? And you look at Harley Davidson; they make one that's a motorcycle. There's all sorts of different manufacturers who make electric motorcycles. What's the difference? The biggest difference between an e-bike and an electric motorcycle is electric motorcycles aren't trying to hide anything. They don't have pedals. There's no option for pedals. Could you imagine a true electric motorcycle with pedals? No. So they're very similar. Although I'm sure Harley would disagree with me. Did any of my comments come through earlier? I have to scroll back. Things keep updating and sliding out of sequence. Okay. Here's a great question that I love. It has nothing to do with e-bikes. What is the penalty for traveling on a highway with G1? Well, highway is any road. So if you mean expressway, it's violating a condition. So any condition of a G1 would come with a consequence. In this particular situation, it's $110 for violating the condition. It comes with a 30-day suspension upon conviction. For the first conviction, 90-day suspension on your second conviction, and on your third, you get kicked out of the graduated licensing program. So that's a thing. Let's see. I saw a question pop in on Volley, which is really about to be, well, deleted. It's gone. It's finished. On the end of the month, April 30th, they're shutting it down, which is really sad. Okay, Akela sent me a picture of the view from his office. What is this? And Michael sent me some code in reference to e-bikes and bicycles stopping for streetcar doors. Operator of a vehicle or horseback must stop. That includes bicycle, e-bike. Oh, yes, it does. And school buses, too. And it includes, everything under the sun, including muscular power. Interesting. All right. Are there specific laws about construction equipment on the road? You got to be more specific than that. To what, like driving road building equipment or putting pylons there? Because there's rules about everything. Okay. Tyler wants to know, if someone was speeding and the cop that was doing radar was catching up, is the cop allowed to speed? Actually, absolutely, because police are allowed to exceed the posted speed limit at any time during the legal execution, or I should say, in the legal execution of their duties. So what does that mean? If I'm patrolling the road and I'm driving through traffic and traffic is traveling at or above the speed limit, I have to be able to travel through and beyond that traffic in order to be able to make observations. Let's say we were all doing 60. Everyone's doing 60. It's a 60 zone. Nobody's breaking the law. I don't know if anybody actually goes the speed limit. It's pretty disgusting, in my opinion. Everyone should be doing the speed limit. But let's say we're doing 60 and I'm just doing 60 with you. It's not efficient for me to patrol only driving next to you. I would only see you for the entire day if we were all driving the same direction everywhere I went. I have to be able to exceed the speed limit to some margin to be able to see the person in front of you and the person in front of them. It's reasonable for us to do it. If we're going to a call, there's a priority to get there, we can do it. But yeah, there's many reasons why we can exceed the speed limit. And very often people say, well, you should be putting your lights and sirens on if you're going to go faster than the posted limit. I was going to say everyone who speeds on the highway should have lights and sirens in, because terrible. Yeah, I have a pet peeve. My pet peeve is people who speed. But the deal is that lights and sirens tend to create unwanted responses from everybody else on the road. They will, pull over, stop directly in front of us. It is dangerous. Let's see here. So that's the answer. Yes, we can speed. We can also use our cell phones. We can also carry firearms. There's also things that police can do that everybody else can't do. Is it true you can get caught going over 24 kilometers an hour on an e-scooter? You can get fined $5,000 to $25,000 or 6 months? So this is a great question. We talked about it earlier in the show. And the deal is that an eKick scooter to work, to be considered an eKick scooter that's legal, well, it has to be maximum 24 kilometers an hour to be on the road. Let me just pull that up for you. So, requirements for the eKick scooter: maximum speed of 24 kilometers an hour on a level surface, maximum weight of 45 kilos, a maximum power output of 500 watts, 2 wheels, brakes, a horn or bell, at least 1 light on front, 1 red light on rear, and reflective material on sides, with a maximum wheel diameter of 17 inches. Can't have pedals, can't have a seat, can't have a basket. Okay. So what does it say? Does it say that you can get insurance or charges? Does it say, well, in order to be a motor vehicle that meets the description of an eKick scooter, you have to follow those things. Well, if you're doing 25 kilometers an hour, you don't fall within the pilot, and the pilot that explains that you can use these vehicles on the road, which means it's a motor vehicle, because it was a motor vehicle before, and now it's a motor vehicle again because the legislation magic is worn off. And that means that you are operating an unsafe motor vehicle above the permitted speed limit, and you have no insurance on that vehicle because you can't get insurance on that vehicle. And it's a motor vehicle, which requires insurance to be on the road. So what is it we're charging you with? We're saying you're operating a motor vehicle on the road without insurance, which it can't have insurance, so I know that you're guilty of it. Now, it means that you are responsible on conviction for a fine of $5,000 to $25,000 and or up to 6 months in jail. Now, is it realistic that you're going to go to jail? Nah, probably not. If you're a repeat offender, could the courts invoke that? Yeah, because that's one of the things that they can do if they choose to. Or maybe they say that I don't have $5,000 to $25,000. Send me to jail. That's probably an option too. Can't pay the fine. I'll plead guilty and go to jail. That's an option. But the truth is that you're a motor vehicle operating on the road without insurance, and that's the fine associated with it. Is it specifically a fine for doing 26 kilometers an hour on an e-bike? No, not the same. Let's see here. What is the legal limit for tinted windows in Ontario? So nothing can be on the front windshield. That's an unsafe vehicle right out of the box. Mind you, if you have a vehicle that's older than 2017 or manufactured in 2016 or older, then it can have a 3-inch tint strip across the top. That's the only time that you can have tint on the front windshield. The windows directly left and right of the driver, those can have no more than 30% light blockage. That means that 70% of the light has to get through, and that is for the purposes of safety, like safety ratings. You can get certified with that. But I can tell you that there's additional charges under the HTA for obscuring the interior of your motor vehicle with color coding or reflective tint. And what that means is, if we can't see you, still get a ticket. Can I drink? Can I have 2 drinks and drive at 22? I can't tell you that 2 drinks is the number that you can have, because it's all about being, I can tell you that you can have at 22 if you're not a novice driver. So you have a full G license and are 22 years old, then you can have more than 0 and not be necessarily violating any rules. You can have, we say don't have any, but at 22 years old, you can have more than 0. You still have to be below 0.05 to be able to legally drive, but you could still be impaired at that point, so it gets muddy. I don't want to give you specific instructions. Now, when it gets into 21 years old with a G license, you're under 22, then you can't have any alcohol in your system at all. Okay. Chase, I'll have to read that case that you sent me, but thank you for sending it. Let's see here. Akela's got to take off. It says, don't have a good day, have a great day. This show went really fast for me. Maybe because I had so much to talk about, and it wasn't that much, but because we were talking about e-bikes, I had lots to chat about. Oh, interesting. I'd have to, so I see your comment there, Chase. Yeah, we'll talk about that after. Master technician, what kind of training or driver training do police receive? We have, at the police college, we have driver training. It's actually a fairly significant component of the police training. And it's possibly the most fun you can have on 4 wheels, because we have a track at the police college, and we learn all sorts of things. But there's advanced training courses in addition to that after the fact. I couldn't even tell you what the specific is. I mean, I've had specific training when it comes to motorcycles. I'm a level 3 operator, and that's takes 3 years of training to get to generally. So there's a lot that goes into a lot of stuff, but we'll have to do some discussions with one of our trainers, maybe get him on the show to talk about all the different stuff that we do. Can you get a ticket for going too fast on a bicycle? Not based on what you may think. There's no the charge of speeding under the Highway Traffic Act does not apply to a bicycle. However, if you are driving dangerously, carelessly, that could be speed related. You're buzzing through people. If you're on the sidewalk, for sure you can be charged for things. If you're on the road and you're carelessly driving, careless driving applies to cyclists. Let's see here. Question about. I want to scroll back. I missed a couple of things, and then I got to go. But this will have to be a conversation that gets continued at a later date. The other day, I saw a drone flying over the DVP. Is that legal? Depends on who's operating the drone. If they have a lawful flight plan, if the drone was over, like, it all depends. There are situations where it would be illegal. Generally speaking, you're not allowed to fly over vehicles or people, but it depends. There's a lot of different what ifs and maybes. Radix on Instagram says, if someone is using one of those illegal unicycles, causes a collision on the road, do they get charged as a driver or pedestrian? They get charged for operating an unsafe motor vehicle on the road. So I would say driver, because we had someone who was severely injured on one of those, and they were charged, and it wasn't good because they were very severely hurt, and they had charges on top of that. Okay. So awesome to see so much engagement today. Looks like it's a hot topic with so many questions. Perhaps carry this topic over to tomorrow to get them all. I like that idea. Thank you for the suggestion. I think we should continue the questions. And I like, these are all topics that I want to talk about on a regular basis because, so often we talk about tinted windows and underglow, but these are important topics. And I'm accused of being anti-cyclist. And it's really not a fair accusation because I'm just about safety. I don't always speak in a way that is to try and be friendly to any one particular group. I call out stupidity everywhere I see it, and I generally suggest that people should stop for stop signs, and the cyclists get upset when I say that because they want to do Idaho stops, which I don't agree with and aren't actually conforming to any law here. But I'm trying to be a straight shooter and not trying to kiss up to any one particular group. But people say I'm car friendly or car. No, I'm just talking about the law. Here's a great question. Do e-bikes require their chain to be attached to the pedal system, even if the pedal system is impossible to pedal due to the small sprockets? That's a great question. Yes, it does. It has to be capable of being pedaled. If you take the pedals away, they're not functioning. It's not an e-bike, and that makes it a motorcycle, and that means it would fall under the motor vehicle category of being an unsafe motor vehicle. Let's see here. Can people do a ride along without college degree to become a police officer? Stephen, if you want to become if you're interested in becoming a member of the Toronto Police Service, and one of the things I forgot to talk about today was the fact that we're hiring. We're always hiring. We're looking for good people who want to become members of our team and serve their community. www.tps.ca/careers. And ride-alongs is something you'll need to discuss with a local division or with your recruiter, because it is possible. Journalists can do it on occasion. People looking into getting to becoming a police officer can do it under certain situations. The actual conditions you'd have to see. We used to do it more often than we do it now, but it's still possible. Speak to a recruiter to find out more. And good luck on becoming a police officer if that's your goal. Quickly, I'm gonna go because this has gone longer than I thought it would. But I'm happy that it has. It's gone longer. Okay. Very quickly, careers. Look at that. We are hiring, and we're. Oh, that's not where I wanted to go here. So I can make this go away and get rid of the captions. So there we go. Careers. So if you are looking to become a member of the police service, know that we have lots of different jobs, and all the information you could ever want to know about becoming a police officer, parking enforcement officer, special constable. They're all here. Even becoming a volunteer, like a member of the auxiliary program, which is where I got my absolute start. But here's one that I like to bring attention to. Even if you don't want to be a police officer, there are lots of jobs, civilian jobs, non-uniform jobs that you can do. And we're looking for a project coordinator for facilities management. Wouldn't it be facility management? I guess not. Legal counsel, solutions architect. Yippee program is a great program for youth to consider for summer programs. Benefits administrator, payroll coordinator, and communications operator, all jobs that we need good people to fill. Yeah, best place to work. I'm a big fan. I've been here for 23 years, and I can't imagine being anywhere else. So this is one career with many jobs, because I started as an auxiliary, I became a court officer, special constable, and then I became a police officer. I've worked in management roles. I was a sergeant with the auxiliary. I was a supervisor within courts. So I've done a lot of different things over the last 23 years, and it's been positive all the way around. Okay. So Alex says he might look at the pension benefits administrator position. Check it out. Go apply. You can apply online. The Grinch wants to know if you have to do testing before the hire process. I don't know. There have been some changes. You have to have an OACP certificate, but I don't know if that requires you to do all of the testing. It might be split now. Things have changed, possibly. Am I able to be a designated driver for an impaired person if in their car as a G driver? Are you a designated, like, do you have a G? What is your license status? Because it depends. You cannot be a designated driver for an impaired person in the event that you have a G1. If you only have a G1, you can't, because the supervising driver must be sober. They have to have less than 0.05 BAC. But if you're a G driver, can you drive another G driver? Then yes. Referring to your video on the jackrabbit start, would it also be considered a jackrabbit if the driver was going straight and did the same? Do you mean like jump the light? That has to be a turn. That's specific. You could be proceed before green, or it could be if you were to hammer down and speed up to 60 very, very quickly. Could it be stunt driving? Yeah, but not for the same reason. A different trigger. Jackrabbit. The jackrabbit start is specific to a left turn. And Chase, absolutely. I did cycle for a good portion of my life. Chase has a phenomenal memory. Yeah. Alex has got information about the. Alex, was it really you? Alex says that it was him, but you weren't over the DVP. You were near it. The drone is above 249 grams. You need a license certificate, and I do have to follow the airspace rules. So if the plane flies over, you have to be under blah blah blah. Okay, I have which Mini do you have, Alex? Have we talked about this before? I have a Mini 3 Pro. What do you have? I have not driven. I have not flown near the DVP. Just saying. Okay. All right. And thank you very much for the compliment, Chase. We've upped our production quality and stuff and things. Oh, here's a question that came in here. I keep saying we're going to leave, and then I don't leave. Do passengers need to show ID during a stop? Not arbitrarily. So if you're just in a motor vehicle and the police stop you, you don't have to show identification unless you're being investigated by in regards to a criminal investigation. If you're being investigated as a result of under an act, a provincial act, like for instance, the Highway Traffic Act, you are required to wear a seatbelt. And as a passenger, if you are being investigated or you're going to be charged for not wearing a seatbelt, then it's fully within the officer's right to ask for your identification. Not that you don't have to provide ID; you must identify yourself, and that's a very different thing. If you refuse, you can be arrested. So serious. Yes, you have to identify yourself if there's a reason to. Okay. I think we've come to an end. I think we've officially gotten there. I did come equipped with a couple of jokes Dad jokes. Let's see here. April 17th. The joke is, let me get this off the screen first. Oh, a whole bunch of stuff just came in. A whole bunch of questions. Is there something? 1 second. How much do police mechanics make? I don't know the answer to that question, but I imagine they get paid well. Mini 2. Okay, cool. Riverdale Park. Okay. And yes, we'll have to figure out a flight experience. And thank you very much. Another compliment. Lisa agrees that this show has really grown and keeps getting better and better. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Okay, back to the joke. I like to talk about my pet penguin whenever I meet someone new. It's a great icebreaker. I actually think that's a pretty good one. That's kind of funny. Okay, we'll leave that deck here. But I did get some extra jokes that I can share from a calendar that is not my own. I've been thinking about taking up meditation. I figure it's better than sitting around doing nothing. It's pretty. I guess you have to know people who meditate. Let's see here. Have you heard about the chocolate record player? It sounds pretty sweet. I like it. I'll take it. Oh, why did the coach go to the bank? To get his quarterback. I like that one too. Okay, some people can't distinguish between etymology and entomology. They bug me in ways I can't put into words. That is actually really good. Okay, and with that, I say goodbye. It has been a slice. Thank you for spending your time with us. And yeah, we'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. I really appreciate you guys. You're awesome. Pat yourselves on the back. 10 a.m. tomorrow, we'll do it all over again. If you got questions, we've got answers, usually, and we love to share them. And we got a last-minute one about ATVs. Bring it back tomorrow, but the answer is depends. Depends on where you are. ATVs in Ontario. Really depends on jurisdictions. Okay. Everyone should know that when Sean says the show is over, we have another 5 to 10 minutes of questions. Yeah, almost always. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Be well. See you tomorrow.